You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hi everybody and welcome to Who Did What Now, the history podcast that's not your history class, with me your host, Kay Charlwood, history harlot and reader of books. I am back after a week off because I had pneumonia, which is not fun and 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Just don't get it. I feel like if the opportunity arises, politely decline. Now, I have got a few things to talk about this episode, actually, a few important things. I've got housekeeping. So, first things first, this week's episode is dedicated to Sabrina, my newest Patreon. Hi, welcome to the Guild of Historical Descent. And now, for regular listeners who have been here for a while, not that Sabrina isn't a regular listener, she probably is, hey, but I have a really fun giveaway that I'm going to talk about at the end of the show. And there's a few things I'm going to talk about there that are big news happening. But before I get into that, we have to go do the boring stuff. I know. First of all, disclaimer, if you're new, there is a possibility that I'm going to use language that you might not find acceptable. And if that's the case, tough fucking luck.
Language.
Okay, so I have a supervisor today, my baba, who is keeping an eye on me because I haven't been well. And he does not like my use of language. He's very good. Unlike Baby, who you have heard in previous episodes, who can swear in context, which I think is definitely my fault. Although I will be blaming her father for a little bit of that. Anywho. Now, before I get into anything else, first of all, thank you for your reviews. They're still coming in. You're amazing. And I could say that it is just for, like, the business side of things. It is. It's great. I love it. Don't worry about it. It's brilliant. However, you can write whatever you like. But I do love getting compliments, so feel free to do that. Continue to do that. It brightens my day, especially when I've been so, sick. And anyone who has ever left a review, well, it's survey time. Even if you haven't left a review, you could also now do that. But also survey time. I'm with the Airwave Media Network and it's time for a listener survey. And this is mainly for ad sorting stuff. The whole purpose of this is to get to know the listeners, to know what they like, to know the demographics, so that we can find advertisers for the podcasts, so that I can finally get a host read ads and actually start making some more money because I am not doing well. It's tough trying to get this up, and I want to get merch coming soon, and I'm just hitting every single hurdle on the way. I was supposed to have merch up, but the company I'm trying to sort merch out with, they're just pushing me from pillar to post. But yeah, if you can just do the listener survey, link in the description down below, it would mean the world to me. It just helps. And it would be good to let Airwave Media know that I have such great supporters. Now, where was I? Yes, there's going to be information on a giveaway at the end of this episode. So listen up, because you guys are going to be the first to hear about it before the rest of the socials. So you're going to be prepared. I say the rest of the socials as if this is some sort of social media situation, when it's not. It's the podcast. So about the podcast, I do actually need your help. If you are listening on day of release especially, but definitely within the first week, do try and listen in the first week if you can. If you're listening to this way in the future, doesn't matter. It's okay. But still, this kind of applies to you. If you download an episode and then play it, it actually boosts it in the chart somehow. I don't know how it works, whether it's on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, but especially between Apple and Spotify, if you download it, it is somehow better. I don't know why, it just is. Like, that does that. But also sharing it. Like, if you, like, share it to, like, Twitter or Instagram, or, like, you DM it to a friend, all that kind of stuff, it all adds up and it boosts the charts. And I want to be able to make better quality episodes. I want to start having, like, I'd love to be able to afford an editor and to be able to make this and to start doing a few visual things, because it's really difficult to be inclusive when I am effectively cutting out a huge chunk of people. So people who are hard of hearing or deaf, or even neurodivergent people who have auditory issues, I could be just cutting them out of this option of being able to share this information. And it's just not cool, man. You know what I mean? It just feels icky. Like, I don't have a better way to describe it, because I feel kind of crappy about it and I want to do better, but I'm not at a point where I can. Like, I want to be able to start doing, like, videos for YouTube, long form episodes of the podcast on there, whether it's making it in video form and also audio form, or I don't know, some funky captioning situation. But I barely have time as it is, between working a full-time job and having two fresh humans. Well, they're not that fresh. Crap is not a swear word.
It is.
It's not.
It is. It's recording, Mommy.
I know.
Well, crap is a word.
What is a word? I'm just saying it's not. I mean, you shouldn't say it. But, like, it's not, like, on the scale of, like...
Mom.
Why are you American all of a sudden?
Mommy, Mommy, you said the bad word.
It's what?
My voice sounds very squeaky whenever it goes on that.
Okay, but not when you hear it in your ears.
Yeah, it sounds like this. Like big and strong. Whenever I listen to this on this, it's very squeaky.
Don't worry, your voice will drop eventually. It's you've only got another, like, 4 years to wait. You'll be fine.
No.
Okay, sorry for that. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, quit your jibber jabber and fact me. In fact you I will. But first, we've got to get our source on. Our sources are The Hard On Trail by Laura Bannister, Trail by Impotence, Virility and Marriage in Pre-Revolutionary France by Pierre Damont, Medieval Combat in Colour, A 15th Century Manual of Sword Fighting and Close Quarter Combat by Hans Talhofer. I have clearly just butchered a German name. Humour, Halters and Humiliation, Wife Sale as Theatre and Self-Divorce by Rachel Ann Vason. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then let's begin. So this week's episode is all about divorce. Yay! I had great plans for last week. I was hoping it would be like a really fun post-Valentine's Day. Let's talk about the lack of love in the world. Although, in fairness, most ye olde marriages, a lot of them were not love matches. A lot of them were, well, depending on your social standing, it could be a political alliance. It could be, well, so that you would be saved from a nunnery, which we'll get into. Or, just so that you didn't end up an old, sad, lonely person. Not that being alone makes you sad and lonely, but it was very much a social stigma, especially way back when, having that kind of autonomy, especially as like a woman or a female presenting person, that it would just be it would look bad on you. Although, like, a spinster is only up until a certain point of age, and then I think after, like, 27 or something, I can't remember the exact date, but they become a thornback, which honestly is just, like, a cooler name. But yes, let's talk about divorce, separation, and other such, dissolution of marriages, shall we say. So, way back in the times of the Celts, well, I say that, there's a Celtic custom, right, which comes under Brehon law, and it kind of ran up until the 1500s, which is when, like, the plantations were happening and the colonisation of Ireland was really starting to take place. By the English, by the Tudors, you know, that whole royal line. I know I mentioned it in the Queen Mary I episode where we talked about Queen's County and King's County, which is awfully in leash. I may have mixed those two up, but it's, yeah, because she wanted to extend, you know, English control beyond the Pale. So you had that, and then by the time Elizabeth comes around, she really starts the plantations and she really starts taking over. And it's really only kind of in the edges, the western part of the country, where she doesn't really have that much control. Like, again, touched on this in the Granuaile episode, which also I think references Brehon law, which is, you know, Celtic, really. Brehon law, this Celtic custom from, like, the 7th century, it laid out all of these reasons why people could get divorced. And honestly, women had such, like, a better, like, option back then. It's so weird. But yeah, there are a bunch of reasons why, like, someone could get divorced. Like, a woman could divorce her husband if he spread a false story about her, or even spread, like, satire. Like, if he mocked her, she could divorce him. If he did not support her, so if he wasn't providing, she could divorce him. Like, boop, done. Nuh-uh. If a man was impotent, if he was infertile, or if he was romantically involved with other men, boom, also divorce. If he, you know, leaves her for another woman, if he cheats, adultery, like, divorce. But, fun fact, they didn't have to get divorced. If he wanted to find, like, a second wife, she could choose to stay there too, if she wanted, but she could also choose divorce. If he tried to induce an abortion, she could divorce him. And then there was this thing, Granuaile did it, and I love it. It was like the first year or so of, like, this marriage, you could just quit. It was like a trial marriage. You could be like, let's see how it goes. And in order to, like, get divorced, you had to just, like, shout out the window, like, I am done with you, bye-bye. I divorce thee, I free myself of you, etc., etc. There is proper wording for it. I just don't remember what that proper wording is because I'm very tired. But yeah, it was one of those things, like, such a great, like, just fantastic, like, women had more opportunities to just get rid of men or husbands that just weren't, you know, up to scratch for whatever reason. And what I find really funny is, like, in Ireland, like, once, you know, Catholicism really took its grip, like, divorce wasn't an option till 1996. Like, and we had to have a referendum on it because that's how laws are changed in Ireland. It's by public vote because it's in the constitution, because, you know, the people of Ireland should have a say in the laws of Ireland, and that's just how it works. That's how it is. A woman could also divorce her husband if he shared intimate details about what happened in the marriage bed. I'm being very careful with my words because there's a child here.
Hello.
Oh, I don't know if you know about the rule of thumb, but basically it comes from an old Irish rule that a man can beat his wife with a stick that's no wider than his thumb. You may have heard that, but you probably haven't heard the other side of it, which is the wife could then divorce him if the strike, if the smack or the hit with the stick caused any marks, if it caused a blemish or a bruise or any kind of thing like that, a welt, she could divorce him, But this is not all about women. Men had options too. Like, a man could divorce his wife for, like, some brilliant reasons. I'm sorry, my favourite here is persistent thieving. So adultery, persistent thieving, bringing shame on his honour, and smothering her child. But, like, how do I put this? Smothering specifically, not like burning or stabbing or, I don't know, throwing into a pit of wolves. Smothering specifically. It does feel a little bit too specific, right? But the whole point of this is, like, women's role, like, was important. Like, they were aware of how much they had to do and how important they were to, like, everything from, like, the economy of the area to, like, society as a whole, culture. Yeah, what a surprise. Way back then, they actually understood how valuable every member of the community was. And so, like, when we would get divorced, like, there's a division of property, like, who gets what stuff. So who got what was kind of dependent on what kind of marriage it was and what each spouse had in the marriage. So, like, it was 3 categories, really. So you got land, you got labour, and then you got livestock. Or, like, whatever other capital, I just like alliteration. So, depending on who owned land, like, there's that. You've got labour, and then you've got, capital or livestock. So, the product that was created, for example, that would be worth more than the raw materials. So, say he had sheep, but she made wool out of it, right? Or spun things, and then made cloth for, like, the village. That would be more valuable than the wool. So, like, that was more important because that was, like, more important for, like, the community. Land, well, the way that land and capital or, like, goods or, like, split depends on whose fault it was that the marriage was, like, dissolving. So, like, if one of them was, like, unfaithful or had been, like, a persistent thief or whatever, like, that person would get less stuff. If the other person was, dodgy, they would get less stuff. But, like, if it was one of those trial marriages, things would basically be separated equally. Women in Ireland at the time, like, who were living under Brehon law, they actually had a lot more rights and a better standard of living compared to, like, many other women in Europe. Like, they were, like, ahead of the game for a long time. And then colonialism kind of came in, and that just screwed a bunch of stuff up. Now let's leave Ireland and let's head over to France. And this is just going to be a really quick overview for anybody who wasn't listening to last week's episode, but you should go and listen to it because it is good. So say a woman is wanting to divorce her husband in very Catholic France. She only had one way to do so, and that's because it was basically illegal not to get jiggy with your spouse. So, because, again, super Catholic, like, the whole concept, the whole reason for marriage was procreation, to make more wee Catholics for God and the wee baby Jesus. The wee baby Jesus, the baby Jesus, the baby Jesus. Oh my goodness. So, and so if you did want to get divorced in those times, especially as a woman, like, if your husband was beating you, if it was, like, a dangerous situation, you couldn't leave it like that. Like, that wasn't enough. The only way out was to prove there was no swizzle in his stick and that you were not going to create more wee Catholics, right? So you would have a trial by impotence, or the impotence trials, where, because I went into more detail in the last episode, go listen to that, but Cliff Notes version, there would be a trial, and men would have to prove that, everything was working down below, that the meat and two veg was fully functioning, that the flesh flute was not flaccid. So, sometimes they would bring in learned and trustworthy women to test the man to see if he was able to, become rigid and or expel fluids. Well, both actually, because they would have to not only stand to attention, but they would have to reach the point of completion and, provide the appropriate baby gravy. So they would be tested for a bunch of stuff, like based on like size, colour, and, ability to hold up under pressure, which, unless you've really got a voyeurism kink, it's that's gonna be a voyeurism expedition. Nope, that's not it. Exhibitionist. If you're not an exhibitionist, that's it. Like, that's probably going to be a tough situation at the best of times, let alone in this incredibly sterile environment. And women would be tested, and one of their tests was to hold in their pee. That's how you check to see if a marriage is consummated. Apparently. So after the trial of impotence, if they were deemed whatever, a man could then demand a trial by Congress, which is just as bad as you think it is. So effectively, surgeons, priests and nuns would watch the married couple, like, go at it, right? So the priests and the surgeons would be behind a screen in a neutral location, by the way, where this estranged couple would have to knock boots. So they would be going at it, right? And sometimes this could last for actual hours. And so, yeah, the dudes are behind the screens, but the nuns, they're not nuns, nurses, midwives. My brain is pudding today. But yeah, they're down like at, body level. They're by the pillows and they are watching intently to ensure that everything is going the way it should, that there's, P and V, and that everything is going well. So they're making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like, they're making sure they aren't smuggling stuff in. And they also check, like, the bed afterwards for fluids. So, like, an appropriate amount of them. Like, it is wild. And if it's so much more embarrassing if you fail the trial by Congress as opposed to just the trial by impotence. It's a whole thing. And medieval France, it was basically illegal not to have the horizontal tango with your spouse. And now, let's leave France. Because, again, covered it last episode. It's fine. Let's go to Germany, or at least the area which is going to be known as Germany. We're still in medieval times. We're in the 15th century. And say you're in an unhappy marriage and you think, I don't want to stay in this. I could stay with him, but fuck that for a game of soldiers.
Language.
Sorry.
Language.
Sorry, Bubba, do you forgive me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Since you are my mom.
I am a good parent.
Yeah, the best parent in the world.
Thank you. Now, we're in Germany, and you want to get rid of your spouse because you could stay in that relationship, but it's no good for you. And so you say, fluff that for a game of soldiers. Yeah. And approval by the child. And so, who is currently dressed like a dinosaur. And
I'm a triceratops.
you're a triceratops?
Yeah, because I have the horns.
Okay. Triceratops is a herbivore.
Omnivore.
You're an omnivore. You know what? You eat a carrot and then we'll talk. Anyway, so yeah, you're in Germany, you want to get divorced, and okay. Apparently, this was more common than one would expect it to be. Instead of going to court, instead of, petitioning the Pope, in order to get divorced, you would have a trial by combat. A trial by combat. Divorce by combat. That is ridiculous and amazing, and you have no idea how ridiculous and amazing this is, but I am going to tell you because I cannot convey to you I'm going to have to convey to you, obviously, because it'd be weird if I didn't, right? So, let's get down to this. Being a part of a royal family might seem enticing, but more often than not, it comes at the expense of everything else, like your freedom, your privacy, and sometimes even your head. Wondery's new podcast, Even the Royals, pulls back the curtain on royal families, past and present, from all over the world, to show you the darker side of what it means to be royalty. From icons like Grace Kelly, Oscar-winning actress turned Princess of Monaco, who the world saw as the ultimate good girl. She mastered playing a happy wife and mother, but beneath it all, she was desperately lonely. Grace spent her whole life working towards perfection, and it ultimately cost her her happiness. Or King Ludwig II from Bavaria. He was only 18 when his father died, leaving the crown to him and a duty to rule that he never wanted. He refused to lead and used the funds from the royal treasury to further his extreme love of opera. But this choice eventually cost him the crown and his life. Follow Even the Royals on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge Even the Royals ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
Hello, Saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
So, generally, if you don't know what a trial by combat is, it's basically you would be judged by the fight. So, you could say it was part of like the god's will or whatever. But you could have a champion who would fight for you, or you could fight for yourself. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what we're on about. But generally, a trial by combat had, I'm going to call it, like John Wick rules, like ethical hitman rules. So like, no women, no children, no dogs, like, so effectively champions would like fight in the stead of like women and children and whatnot. However, the exception to this rule was medieval divorce. So typically, in a trial by combat, a woman's champion would generally be her husband. Now, this may be a wee issue here, but in this scenario, a man cannot exactly fight himself. I mean, he could. It would just be kind of silly, really. I mean, I don't know. Like somebody punching themselves in the face, and nobody would win. So effectively, when it came to marital disputes, when it came to divorce, there is an exception to the husband being the champion rule, and that is the wife and husband duel. So, this is so good. I love it so much. So, they get to pick their arms and just go for it. So it's here's the thing. It has to be a fair fight, and in order to do so, oh my god, they had to make it a fair fight. And as men in general are physically stronger and women are not, like, as a general rule, I know some men whose ass I could kick, and I know some women who could beat me, and I'd probably thank them for it. But that's not the point. That's not the point. But, like, typically, especially in medieval times, this is where it's at. So instead of a regular duel where, like, each person gets to, like, pick their weapon of the choice, and because, men were supposed to be, accustomed to the tools of war, shall we say, women would be provided with a rock wrapped in cloth, which is basically like putting stones inside a sock, or like in a handbag, or like a soft bag, like a tote bag. So they would have that. And men, they would use a wooden club of equal length. So now, this already doesn't feel like a fair fight, because she's got like a cloth with a rock in it, and he has a wooden club. So that already seems a bit weird. But in order to ensure that this is fair, the man has his hand tied behind his back. One hand, obviously one hand for the club, one hand behind his back. And to ensure it is even fairer, I swear, the man is in a hole. And not a metaphorical hole, not in a pit of despair. Although he might be really sad this is happening. Whom's to say? But yeah, so there's the woman. She's on top of the ground. She has her rucksack, and she's swinging away, while the man brandishes his wooden club of equal length with one hand tied behind his back and standing chest high in a 3-foot wide hole. So he can manoeuvre around a little bit and try and, like, hit her with a stick, and she'd be swinging at him with her sack of rock. And you may be thinking to yourself, wow, this is weird. It's about to get weirder, because there are more rules to this. So effectively, she's like whack-a-moling him with this sack of rock, right? The stones in a bag. She's supposed to hit him, swinging it at him. He's trying to hit her with his club. But he is not allowed to touch the sides of the hole. If he does it, he forfeits one of the 3 clubs he has. So he gets 3 clubs. And he loses one every time he touches the side of the hole. Like a game of Operation, like, bzzzt, off you go, done, And if he loses all 3 clubs, then he has to continue, like, without a weapon. So he has to, like, try and grab her at this point, and it becomes this really weird wrestling match where he has to try and pull her into the hole, and she has to try and beat him into the hole. It's just madness at this point. And this thing would have had to have been judged, like officially judged. There would have been like a referee situation. Somebody would have been watching over this. And on top of that as well, like, who the hell came up with these rules? Like, did they just get a bunch of 7-year-olds and went, you make it work, kids? Because there's too many factors. Like, did a drunk frat boy come up with this? Because it really feels like this is one of those, like, the truth is stranger than fiction scenarios. But yeah, how do I put this? It actually gets worse because, like, the divorce by combat wasn't till the death. Like, you didn't have to, like, end the life of your spouse, effectively. But somebody did always die at the end. So if a woman lost, she would have to be buried alive in a hole. And if the man lost, he had to be executed with honour in the town square. I just why can't people just, like, let them separate and go their own ways? That just feels extreme, just like a tad. But anyway, let's leave Germany now and let's trot on over to England. And let me tell you about the penny auctions. We're in the mid-19th century. And yeah, so the Matrimonial Causes Act, like, it allowed divorce. Yeah, but here's the thing. You would have to spend, like, a ton of money, like a ridiculous amount of money, more than you would have for a deposit on a house nowadays. Like, that is the amount of money you would have to spend in order to get divorced. And that's on the grounds of, adultery, abuse, all the dodgy stuff. And even then, the only people who could really afford to pay the church and the government to allow them to get divorced were, rich white men, really, more so than anything else. And working class people, they didn't really have the same options. And yeah, from throughout the 19th century and a wee bit into the 20th century, people would just sell their wives. It wasn't technically legal or official, but it definitely happened often enough. So, between, 1837 and 1901, there were 108 documented cases of this happening. And as you and I well know, that if for everything that is documented, there's probably 2 or 3 other instances of it not being documented. So this probably happened even more than we know about. So yeah, there was an unhappy marriage, and this is an auction, and it was kind of treated the same way as a cattle auction is. The woman would be led in with a rope around her neck and brought forth and paraded, right? And the weird thing is, 9 times out of 10, this was usually done with the wife's permission. In fairness, I could see being totally done with someone's stuff. Language. So I can see someone being totally done with someone's, way of doing things, and someone's behaviour, and someone's attitude, and someone's dirty socks, and just being like, you know what? Cool, adios, I'm out. So yeah, a lot of the times you would have the cooperation of the wife. Because unlike, say, for example, when people were sold as property, slave auctions and the like, who did not have a say in this, in these penny auctions, the woman that was for sale was just as excited to leave her quote-unquote owner as he was to, get rid of her. And she actually had some autonomy, She could turn down a bid if she wasn't happy with it. If, the person was, disgusting or did not live a life that felt was up to her standards, or, didn't have any teeth, whatever it was, she could just say no. She could turn it down. And sometimes, as well, the way this would work is, if the woman had, a little something on the side, sometimes the person who actually purchased her was her side piece, her lover, her Clem Fandango, And, oh my god, I've got this one here where, these auctions, one of them he had his wife come out, and he referred to her as, this is absolutely glorious. So he said that she was a born serpent which he took for comfort, but unfortunately, instead of being a comfort, she was a tormentor, a domestic curse, a night invasion, and daily devil. He stated, "Gentlemen, I speak truth from my heart when I say, may God deliver us from troublesome wives and frolicsome women." Frolicsome? Is he saying that she was too randy for him? Is that the issue? He did He did say that she could milk cows and read novels, which I'm not entirely sure is a compliment, but it seems but he did also say that she could make rum, gin and whiskey, which definitely seems like more of a selling point. I think he was realizing his pitch was going awry and was like, no, please, somebody take her. Like, please, anybody. Here, she does good things too. Which is probably as polite as it does get in a divorce proceeding, I guess. There was one wife auction that I really, really love. And it was, this dude was trying to sell his wife. He was like, I'm done with her, whatever. And his next door neighbour bought her, and she left, moved in next door, and left the husband with all the kids. And I just found it so funny. It really just tickled me. Yeah. And there we go. That is history of divorces or forms of divorce. Just better options, really. Maybe we should bring back trial by combat, but maybe we should not have like the automatic weird executions at the end. Just as an idea. Like, just saying. If you liked me talking about divorces, rate and review 5 stars. Share this, download it, share it more. Just make other people listen to it. Just go for it. And what did we learn today? We learned that getting divorced has always been kind of tricky. And that probably, I still maintain the trial by combat is my favourite. If you have a favourite, tweet me, DM me on Instagram, post it on TikTok, whatever works for you. I'd love to hear it. Or any kind of weird divorce law, historically that you know of, let me know, because this is just far too interesting for me. I love it. It's weird marriage customs from around the world, which are very typical and traditional and things like that. And just, they're fun. I just love learning new stuff. And especially if I don't know it, it's so good. Where was I now? Yes. So, before I get into anything else, before I finish off this, we are going to talk about the giveaway. So I'm going to be doing 2 giveaways, one of which, if you're in the States, is I am an honoured guest. I'm guest speaking, and I'm doing 3 workshops and a live podcast recording at the Heartland Pagan Festival. That's into the night. It's on Memorial Weekend. And I'm actually going to be doing a live thing this Saturday, if you're listening to this on release day. So there's going to be a wee live thing, a wee intro, a wee promo. That's going to be going live this Saturday. And on the first week of March, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to run it for a week, just because I want to get it nice and quickly and done and make it easy for everybody. And we're going to do a giveaway for a pass for the Heartland Pagan Festival in Kansas. Obviously, if you're in and around the area, it's going to be better for you to sort of apply. It sounds so weird, but to go for it. I'm going to be doing a second giveaway, which is it was just for followers. It was just for supporters and just greatly appreciate stuff. I had initially planned to do a giveaway when I was on Instagram, and I was like, you know what, when I hit 2,000 followers, I'll do a giveaway. And then for some reason, something blew up. Something just really grew. And I went to 5,000, then 10,000, then within a month, I had 100,000 followers. And I've kind of plateaued since then, and that's fine. I'm not fussed about it. I'd rather have you lot just happily listening and having you continue to listen and continue to follow than to lose any of you. I don't need new or more followers. I just want the people who want to learn and want to listen to continue, I want to build this and have a community. I just think it'd be awesome. I'm trying so hard not to swear. I'm so trying. And, So I've spent the last wee while collecting stuff. So I've got books. I've got some from my personal collection as well that are going in it. I have like prints from independent artists. I've got just things that have been made by independent artists too. You know, I've got like jewellery and brooches, and I did have stickers. Do I still have stickers? There's just like a bunch of stuff. I just have to find out where I've put it, because I've been collecting for so long that they're just in like different places in my house. And that's going to be coming up too, but you'll actually know when and where that's going to drop. But I'll let you know in like a future episode. And because the listeners, like everything, every social media thing I do, all of that, it exists for this podcast. And so the listeners of this podcast are going to get first dibs, really, because you're going to know when and where. So, yeah, on the 1st of March, I am going to, like, release the information for the giveaway on Instagram. And I'm going to do it, you know what? You know what I'll do? 1st of March, I'll do noon Eastern Standard Time. That seems like a good... Noon Eastern Standard Time? Yeah? No? Yeah? You know what, we'll do it that way. Because I struggle enough to know when time zones are. Like, I struggle with time zones because my brain is not mathematically inclined. And it's embarrassing that it's not mathematically inclined, but there we are. So yes. I'm going to talk about somebody now. That we've got that done with. I'm going to talk about Esme Louise James. I bloody love her. I had someone come into my my Instagram comments on one of my History Harlot posts, and they were like, are you trying to like compete with the kinky history lady? And this is not the first time I've had comments like this. I've had people tag her in my videos. I've been tagged in hers. I have been sent DMs from people who accused each of us from stealing from each other when we just overlap on occasion, and sometimes we'll have similar turns of phrases just because we both have to circumvent like the same censorship issues, and sometimes our wording can be similar because we've used the same reference source, you know, we've cited the same thing. And sometimes we just kind of speak alike because we both originated in the same place, you know what I mean? And yeah, she's amazing, and her podcast is bloody fantastic. If you listen to me, you should listen to her. She's cooler than me. And yeah, smarter than me too, actually. She is. She's just fantastic. And here's the thing. This whole competing, this whole pitting women in a field against each other, we don't need a trial by combat here. Like, there's no issue here. Like, we exist in the same space. It's fine. It's like Dr. Kate Lister exists. Esme is soon going to be Dr. Esme James. You know what I mean? Like, I'm academia is not for me. I'm done. I'm out of it. Like, I don't want to go back to it. I am happy where I am. And I have always said that the reason that I teach history the way I do is because I believe history should be accessible. And so, my whole point is, we can all exist in the same space. Melissa, Dr. Kate, Esme, a bunch of other ones whose name I don't remember. Like, we can exist in the same space and it is fine. We're not in competition, you know? And one of us doing well, someone having success, isn't detrimental to the rest of us. It just means that maybe more of us will be recognised. Like, this is not a girl boss situation. You know, we're not stepping on each other to get to the top. We're like, we lift each other up. We support each other. And if we don't do that, then we fail. Like, someone else's success doesn't mean that you're losing. It doesn't mean I'm losing. And that is why, recommendation time. Listen. Your listening recommendation is the Kinky History Podcast with Esme Louise James. And I want you to go on there and when you listen to her, and I want you to rate and review 5 stars for her as well. Because she deserves it. You can tell her I sent you. I don't mind. She deserves every success. That woman works so hard all the time. I am surprised she is fully functioning like as a human at this point, because she doesn't stop. She's always working. She's always researching, and she deserves every accolade, every success, every round of applause. She deserves it. And you should give it to her, because she's bloody amazing. Like, I remember when people were like originally like tagging her way back, and like she would come on and be like, "Hey bestie," like to sort of, you know, get rid of any concept of animosity. Bloody fantastic. So yeah, listening recommendation, Esme Louise. Go listen to her. She's fantastic. Kinky History Podcast. For reading, I am gonna suggest The Tuesday Murder Club by Agatha Christie. I love Agatha Christie. I regret nothing. Who doesn't love a whodunit? If you don't love a whodunit, you don't have to read it. But I'm just saying, it's great. And for watching, you know what? Go watch The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. We love Brendan Fraser here, so go watch him. Go watch Rachel Weisz be amazing. And you know what? It's just an amazing ensemble cast, and is probably the reason for so many bi-awakenings. But go watch those movies. They're amazing. Have a great time. And with that, I am going to bid you good night. Adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, my friends. Bye-bye.